Hi everyone, welcome to Microsoft Technical Takeoff session about securing corporate credentials with Enhanced Phishing Protection. I'm Sinclair Hamilton and I'm a product manager at Microsoft, and I'm really excited to talk to you today about our Enhanced Phishing Protection feature because I've been working alongside our Smart Screen and Web Defense teams to bring this to life for the last 2 years. Before I was a product manager, I was a consultant in Microsoft's industry solutions, and I specialized in hybrid and cloud identity. This is what we're going to discuss today. I'll first level set on the problem of phishing and some recent trends we're seeing. I'll then introduce you to what you need to know about the new feature that just GA'd on 9/20 this year with Windows 11 22H2. Finally, I'll show you the user experience with an end-to-end demo of our feature. I hope you're just as excited as I am about Enhanced Phishing Protection and the ways it could protect your organization's Azure AD, Active Directory, and local passwords. Credential phishing is the #1 security concern that we've heard when we talk to customers. Though organizations are making the transition to passwordless authentication, that transition is a journey. Our feature protects corporate passwords from being used unsafely while organizations are on their journey of adopting passwordless authentication. Here's some data to show how prevalent and damaging phishing is. When you read almost any security report, phishing dominates the numbers. According to the World Economic Forum, 80% of attacks in 2020, taken over 100 nations, were credential phishing. And in the US, over 83% of attacks reported to the FBI involved phishing. And, as I'm sure you know, most enterprises are breached every year through phishing. To make matters worse, we've seen phishing become even more prevalent over the last few years as employees have been working at home during the pandemic. There's been a greater shift for remote and hybrid workers to leverage cloud resources on shared infrastructure and to collaborate more online. All of that makes corporate credentials even more valuable. If a password gets into the wrong hands, an attacker can access critical data and wreak havoc on your organization. So here's the trend that's been emerging. This chart shows the active malicious websites tracked by the Google crawlers. The blue line shows you the number of websites distributing malware, and the red line shows the number of websites attempting to steal your credentials. As things stand today, for every malware site, there are over 100 phishing websites. And modern phishing attacks are really sophisticated and can spin down in minutes. Phish kits reduce the barrier to entry for criminals and make it easy for almost anyone to stage an attack. So because the world has moved to the cloud, if an attacker can steal your password, they can easily become you, accessing your data and performing actions as you. So for example, a user could easily share their corporate password on this malicious site without thinking twice. It has no obvious phish signals. Here we have a PDF opened in a client that is not the browser, which appears to be a web page asking for information. The PDF here can be saved and sent back as part of an email, or even worse, the data can be exfiltrated from the PDF to a web endpoint using JavaScript. How many times do your users click on these prompts without paying attention to the domain? Or what about the case where the domain is actually known and trusted, but it's compromised because an attacker has control over the web endpoint? At Microsoft, we've seen a lot of attacks like this, and by doing this sort of research, we were able to come up with a better way to protect Microsoft passwords. Here's another example. It's a fake login page that's made to look like the Microsoft login. This is what a typical commodity phish kit can provide an attacker today. This site looks legitimate, as if it's the real Microsoft login page. The only way to know this content is phishing is if we were able to analyze all of the process connections and network activity happening behind the scenes at the operating system level. Well, that's exactly what Enhanced Phishing Protection in Microsoft Defender Smart Screen does. So behind the scenes, Windows analyzes apps and sites where password entry occurs. When Enhanced Phishing Protection sees signals at the OS level indicating potential compromise, it jumps into action. Enhanced Phishing Protection in Microsoft Defender Smart Screen helps protect the Microsoft password you use to log into your device from malicious apps and sites in real time, whether it's an Azure AD password, Active Directory password, or a local account password. The first example of enhanced phishing protection scenario is when a user types their password into phishing content. If we know that a website is known to be malicious or compromised, and we detect the entry of their Windows login password, we will alert the user and tell them to change their password immediately to prevent the attacker from exploiting the password. Likewise, if an app that is otherwise normally trusted, like Excel, starts making connections that are not trusted because of an add-in that is malicious or compromised, for example, we will again alert the user and tell them to change their password. Enhanced phishing protection can also promote better password behavior. We know that unique, secure passwords are difficult to remember. Users will often attempt to reuse their work Windows login password for other apps or sites, like personal social media use, and attackers know this. When there is a breach of one app or site, attackers will try to use that password against the user's work credentials. Our new feature will warn the user that reusing the password they use to sign into their work device is unsafe, and the feature will prompt them to change their work password. Speaking of poor password hygiene, enhanced phishing protection also helps protect against unsafe password storage. We know that some users have a hard time remembering their complex passwords. As a result, they sometimes resort to unsafe password behavior, such as storing their passwords in a file on their computer. If this file is ever compromised, the user's exposure greatly increases. So our feature can tell users that they shouldn't type their password into an app like Notepad, Word, or other Microsoft 365 apps. Now that we have this quick introduction to enhanced phishing protection, let's get into some of the details. So now we're going to dig into how enhanced phishing protection in Windows 11 knows when you type your Microsoft account password into any app or site, and how it understands whether there's a secure connection to that trusted website. So your Microsoft password that you use to log into your system is stored as a cryptographic hash in LSAS, which is the Local Security Authority process. As a person provides input to Windows, that input flows from the hardware through the Windows input stack and into the application at hand. We hash and encrypt that input and then compare it with the cached password in LSAS. We can then identify when the person has entered their Microsoft password. This is all done asynchronously to ensure we don't impact performance in latency-sensitive code paths and with the utmost security using hashes. At this point, when a password entry is detected, we identify the context the individual is in, such as the app and any accompanying network activity there is, to identify the person's password entry is safe. If the credentials are entered someplace that's unsafe, Windows will let you know that you're in danger. That means for the first time, you have the ability to know the moment your password has been stolen and protect yourself before that password is used against you. We're also able to detect when people are entering their password into chat sessions in apps for purposes other than legitimately authenticating into the app. And going beyond phishing, we're also able to detect when users reuse their Microsoft passwords across other services. This is a serious security risk for enterprises. We're also able to detect when people type their passwords in plain text, like a Word document or a PowerPoint deck. Now that we understand how enhanced phishing protection works, let's dive into the user experience of being notified at the moment of unsafe password entry. Keep in mind that as an IT admin, you can choose when notification alerts are shown to your users. So when an IT admin rolls out enhanced phishing protection policy through MDM or group policy, this is what enterprise end users will see in the Windows Security app. The phishing protection settings are grayed out because the setting is managed by an administrator. This configuration in particular is showing that the phishing protection service is running, but the notification alerts are off for users. This is what we call audit mode. So it means that the feature is turned on and collecting telemetry about unsafe user password behavior, and that telemetry is being sent to the M365 Defender security portal for you to be able to access and see what's going on. But enhanced phishing protection is not showing any warning messages at all to the user. So you can see here, there are 3 checkboxes that correspond to the 3 enhanced phishing protection scenarios that we discussed earlier. And because none of those checkboxes are checked, you can see that no notifications are being sent to your end users at all. And if you want your enhanced phishing protection feature to be in this audit mode state, You just need to ensure that the service enabled policy is on and enabled through either MDM or group policy. If you do decide through MDM or group policy to alert your users if they enter their password into phishing content on any app or site, then this is what your users will see when they type their password into phishing content. So this is a blocking dialog that's prompting the user to change their password to minimize harm to their account. And if the user were to click the Change Password button in that blocking dialog, they are directed to the Windows Setting UI to change their password. So let's see everything that we've talked about come together in a demo that walks through the end user notifications, where admins can see unsafe password usage information in the M365D security portal, and also where admins can configure which notifications are shown to users. Let me show you what Windows 11 version 22H2 is doing to help corporate passwords stay safe while you're on your journey to a fully passwordless future. Windows 11 detects when you type the Microsoft password you use to sign into your device into any app or site and understands whether it has a secure connection to a trusted website. If not, Windows will let you know you're in danger. For the first time, users have the ability to know the moment their password has been used unsafely and protect themselves before that password is used against them. Here, an enterprise user believes they're on a safe site. Methods used by attackers have become more devious. They rely on catching users off guard, often in trusted apps and communications. Let's say that the user believes they are on a bank site when they are supposed to make payroll changes for their finance team. However, Enhanced Phishing Protection warns them as soon as they type their Azure AD password on the site, because the site is actually a phishing site. Without this feature, the user would have shared their corporate password without thinking twice. Their credentials would have been breached without their knowledge. And attackers want corporate passwords, because once they're in your network, they can move laterally, gain sensitive access, and disrupt your systems. What this attack demonstrates is the need for last-mile protection for users to help them decipher what's legitimate and what's not. From an IT perspective, you can view the phishing alert in the Microsoft for Defender endpoint portal under Incidents and Alerts. You can also see password reuse and unsafe password storage events in this MDE security portal, providing you unparalleled insights into user behavior. Enhanced Phishing Protection can also promote safer password behavior. IT admins can customize which notifications appear to end users through MDM policies. For example, here in the Microsoft Endpoint Management Portal under Devices and Configuration Profiles for Windows 10 and later, you can enable this feature under Smart Screen in the Settings catalog to also show warnings for password reuse and unsafe password storage. We know that password reuse is common because strong passwords can be hard to remember. What if your user tries to reuse their corporate password from their work device to sign their child up for an after-school program because they don't want to remember a new password? You'll see that they're issued a warning to use unique passwords to keep their information safe. For people that like to store their passwords in Notepad or Microsoft 365 apps like Word, Enhanced Phishing Protection warns that this is an unsafe practice. Behind the scenes, Windows analyzes apps and sites where password entry occurs. When Enhanced Phishing Protection sees signals indicating potential compromise, it jumps into action. So you just saw the end-to-end demo of Enhanced Phishing Protection and what it looks like for end users during all three of our protection scenarios. So as you can see, there are three main components to Enhanced Phishing Protection. First, it notifies both users and IT at the moment of unsafe password usage of the credential that's used to sign into the Windows 11 device, whether that's an Azure AD, Active Directory, or local password. This gives you unparalleled insight into unsafe password usage across your entire organization, empowering you to understand where and when unsafe usage has occurred. Secondly, Enhanced Phishing Protection prompts users in real time to change their password if it's reused or typed into phishing content. Changing the password makes an attacker unable to use that password to gain unauthorized access to your organization. And lastly, Enhanced Phishing Protection can be configured with MDM or group policy so that you can show alerts to your users when you're ready and only for the scenarios that matter most to your organization. You can also use these resources to learn more about Enhanced Phishing Protection in Microsoft Defender Smart Screen. All right, thank you so much for joining the Enhanced Phishing Protection session in Microsoft Technical Takeoff. Now let's get to the live Q&A session.